Welcome to our presentation titled Listening with New Ears. In today's presentation, we're going to reflect on what bias is, the types of bias, the role of bias in mediation, and the impact on mediation outcomes. Then we'll look at ways to overcome bias. Bias. Bias can be explicit or implicit. Where there is explicit bias, an individual is aware of their prejudices or attitudes towards certain groups and may act out with racist comments or behavior. Implicit bias is unconscious, in that the individual may not be overtly aware of the subconscious feelings, attitudes, perceptions, or stereotypes that drive their decision-making. Implicit bias develops because our brain creates shortcuts to categorize people to quickly process information. Even when an individual espouses non-prejudice principles, unconscious bias may still be at play without them even realizing it. In-group bias is when we tend to favor our own social group and have bias to out-group members, especially less socially valued ones. This can play out through physical manifestations like eye contact, blinking, smiling, and even seating distance. Confirmation bias is an example of seeing what we expect from people and hearing what we expect, which reinforces our belief system and may even override our ability to receive new information and hear new things. Racial bias is a manifestation of the attitudes and stereotypes we unconsciously hold toward members of indigenous races and races other than our own. What's more, implicit bias can even result in racial anxiety when we feel ill-equipped to interact with individuals outside of our social group, leading to disproportionate or inappropriate reactions. Bias in mediation. One of the core values or practices of an effective mediator is neutrality. However, some academics contest our ability to maintain neutrality given our own bias, explicit or implicit. To overcome one's own bias requires a fair degree of self-awareness, which readily uncovers explicit bias but demands a deeper dive to recognize implicit bias, since it hovers beneath the surface. Positive or negative attitudes or stereotypes we hold when we meet parties in a mediation may cloud our ability to be impartial with parties. For example, assumptions about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders drinking, fathers who use recreational drugs, ex-partners in same-sex relationships, clients experiencing homelessness, mental ill health histories, family violence, and so on the list goes. From the first interaction, confirmation bias may be at play when mediating parties who are like us or not like us. The way we greet them, interact with them, and then direct them in such a way as to influence parties to achieve the outcome we believe may be the most desirable. Contradictory evidence or arguments may be ignored because we have already made up our minds about individuals based on our first impressions. Discriminatory behavior and judgment due to implicit bias can negatively skew the direction and outcomes of a mediation. Important information may be overlooked or pushed aside. Legal considerations like the equal shared responsibility of parents and the rights of the child to a meaningful relationship with their parents may be downplayed. All of this compounds the disadvantage of the discriminated parties, often resulting in negative behavior, which then reinforces negative stereotypes. Overcoming bias. Carol Izumi refers to debiasing, claiming it is possible to overcome our implicit bias through a number of techniques and by employing certain bias reduction strategies. Self-awareness. The first step to addressing implicit bias is acknowledging it exists. This can be achieved through psychological testing or organizational training and education. Once mediators become aware of their own implicit bias, they may be internally and externally motivated to remedy them. That is, to appear to themselves and others that they are not prejudiced. Monitoring and moderating. Then, monitoring and moderating one's own responses and reactions when confronted with situations where bias may be present. Questioning our reactions as they occur and moderating our behavior can create new neural pathways to alter our prejudices so that we see clients with new eyes and hear them with new ears. Frequency of interaction with clients from our outgroup, when supported with relevant training, can lead to new associations with clients. Cultural training around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island clients can lead to new understanding in practitioners, which opens up greater possibilities for clients and their ongoing relationship with their children and their kin. Training in areas of social disadvantage by academics like Ruby Payne can prompt practitioners to interact differently with their clients, thereby achieving better results for the family and child. Greater diversity in hiring of mediators can enhance the capability of an organization to address the needs of all groups and arrive at more equitable outcomes. Clients may wish to have an Aboriginal mediator or LGBTQI mediator to feel like their voices are being heard and considered. Co-mediation in such cases can benefit the client as well as the mediator, who may gain new knowledge and experience through the process. Finally, remember some simple but sage advice. A mediator is a moderator, not a manipulator. They are allowing people of opposing views to speak their truth the way they see it, without having an agenda. Hi, Brent. Really nice to see you here. I'm really, really grateful that you could come along today. And so I've already taken you through our standard setup and reporting talk. So now I'd like to ask you a few questions about you and Jolly and what happened around there. Is that okay with you, Brett?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, super, super. So how long were you guys together before you separated?
Okay, well, we got together pretty quickly, but we were together for about seven and a half years, roughly.
Okay, terrific. And then how long were you together since you've separated? Sorry, how long has it been since you've separated?
Oh, so we've been separated for about 2 to 3 years, nearly towards the 3-year mark at the moment.
Okay, were you married?
Oh, no, we weren't. So.
Okay, all right, no worries. Now, what about reconciliation? Any chance that you and Jolly would be getting back together?
No, there's no possible way that we'll get back together. She's already moved on. She's repartnered with another woman. So I don't think that's going to be a possibility.
Okay, Brent. Yeah. And so the reason for breakup, Brent, from your point of view?
Oh, it's really difficult because there's a few different reasons, but mainly there was a lot of alcohol use. A lot of alcohol. There was some drug use as well.
And that's obviously on Jolly's part.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just constant and unrelenting verbal abuse towards me and put downs. It was just a really, really unhealthy and terrible environment to be in, and I didn't want to bring Alira up in that environment.
Oh, gee, that must have been hard.
It was really, really difficult, but it's much better at the moment than when we were still trying to work it out, I guess.
Okay, no worries. And so then who was the one that left the relationship, Brent?
I left the relationship. There was a big fight that we had. It was mainly verbal, more towards me. And I had to end up calling the police and asking them to remove Charlie from the house because she was so verbally aggressive, which they did. So.
Okay, good. Now, in terms of communication, how do you and Jolly communicate around your child now, Alira?
There's not really much communication at all. When there is any type of communication, it's abusive, but her phone keeps getting cut off. She doesn't pay a bill, I guess. And yeah, it's just really hard to communicate with someone who you can't communicate with. And it's not my responsibility to pay her bills anymore. We do sometimes communicate through Facebook, but even then I get abused, so I don't even like that method of communication.
Oh, I see. Okay. And now I'm going to ask you a few questions about family background, yours, hers, etc. What's your family background that you have in your relationship status now?
Oh, I've not moved on like Charlie has. She's had multiple partners, and she's brought all those partners around Alira, which is really confusing for her. But me, no, I'm just single. I just have my work. And I spent a lot of time building up my work and my job and getting a house that's stable for Alira. I work in IT, so I've got flexible work hours so that it suits Alira.
Right, that sounds perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have my mum and my dad as supports, Bob and Jane. You know, they're my supports when I need them, but I'm basically able to do my work and look after Alira myself.
Okay. What about Jolly? What's her situation that you're aware of?
Well, at the moment, well, she's had the multiple partners, as I said before, but I think there's someone in her life at the moment. From what I hear around from friends, this person's name is Peter. She's in a same-sex relationship with Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's really good for Alira to be around Peter. It's just confusing for her. Okay. And I don't think Peter's really a nice person. And she just seems to bring out the worst in Charlie.
Oh dear. Okay. Now, in terms of the parenting arrangements, what do you guys have in place now?
Well, when we separated, we were both seeing Alira, but you know, the more abuse and harassment that I've received, the more safety concerns that I've got around alcohol use and drug use, I was advised not to hand Alira over back to Charlie while I had those safety concerns. So there's been not much contact with Alira and Charlie at the moment, because the only communication can be by Facebook. Where that's why I've been asking for phone calls so that she could at least talk to Alira over the phone. But yeah, it's never consistent, so it's really hard to arrange anything and then have Alira like prepared for it and happy to have that conversation, but then it just doesn't happen. So, and then I have to. I'm the one that has to let her down all the time.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
And try and build it back up again. Yeah,
no, I get that. And so then, just to get our conversation going now, can you just tell me, Brent, what it is that's brought you to mediation, a little bit more about your perspective, maybe, and you know, your understanding of the process, I suppose.
Yeah. So I've come into mediation because I've been invited. I'm happy to be here if we can get something sorted out, but it needs to be safe. You know, there is excessive drinking when we were together, and from what I understand from friends, it hasn't stopped. I should say Charlie, she's living with Alira's aunt at the moment, but there is alcohol abuse with Alira's aunt as well, so I'm not comfortable in having Alira even in that environment. So, and at the moment, when she's not with her aunt, she's with Alira's aunt, she's couch surfing. She hasn't had stable accommodation. She doesn't have a job, so she can't really even look after Alira properly. You know, if all those things were answered, then we could possibly go back to looking at something again with some time, and that's where we're at the moment.
Okay, good. Well, thanks so much, Brett. Like I said, it's really good of you to come into this process and to be part of it. And hopefully we can work something out that's suitable for Alira. That's, you know, for her best interest. Okay, so thanks very much, Brent.
Thank you.
Jolly, I've already taken you through our standard setup and reporting talk. So now I'd like to talk to you and ask you a few questions about you and Brent and what happened. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, terrific. Thanks very much. This set of questions here is around your relationship and just get some more information around that. How long did you know each other before separation, you and Brent?
A few years, like since we had our daughter, but we got together pretty quick. I got pregnant pretty quick, and so yeah, we just we got together like pretty much right away because we wanted to have our daughter, Alira, and yeah, so we were together for probably about like 7 or 8 years.
Okay, then. So you were together about 7 or 8 years as a couple.
Yeah. While Alira was younger.
Were you married, engaged? What was your status?
No, we just like lived together and stuff. So we never he never got around to it, maybe, but it's good, I guess, in the end.
Okay, and so, and how long have you been separated now?
I don't know, two or 3 years.
Okay, all right. Is there any chance of getting back together with your partner?
Oh, fuck no way.
Okay. What about the reason for separation? Why the breakup?
Look, to be honest with you, I think that Brent, he doesn't get me, number one, and he's really controlling. He's heaps controlling. He like you'll see when we talk more about like with Alira, like what he's been doing. He just he tried to control everything. I was unhappy for like a real long time, and I just felt like my freedom was important, and we used to fight, and I didn't think it was good for Alira. So I just thought, you know what, like that's it, it's enough.
Okay. So then who left the relationship?
Brent left. We got into this real big fight, and I had like had a drink or whatever, which is like, not good in that. And yeah, so like we got into this big fight and he just left. So me and Alira were still at the house, but because the house isn't in my name, it's in his name, then he got me kicked out.
So
And
when
now
you
he
said you had a drink, what do you mean? Like, were you drunk?
No, I look, I wasn't drunk. It's just that I know that sometimes that, you know, everyone's like that. If you have a drink, then sometimes you might say things that are a bit more harsh or like go a bit more, you know, full on. But no, I wasn't drunk. Like I don't drink like that.
Okay. And does Brent think you drink like that?
Yeah, he fucking says that shit all the time. Like I one time we had a fight and I'd been having a couple of drinks beforehand, and now he goes around telling everyone. He probably told you that I have a drinking problem. He calls the cops on me all the time just because he wants to have a lira for himself and he doesn't want me to see her. He calls the cops and tells them that I'm a drunk and I'm drinking when I've got a lira. Bullshit.
Okay. Okay then. So are you drinking when you're around a lira?
No, I just said it's bullshit. Like I don't drink like that. One time we had a fight when I'd had a drink, and now he tells everyone. Well, of course, you know, of course he's bloody telling everyone that. Like he's trying to make me look bad. People are always trying to take blackfellas' kids off them. Like it happens all over the place, and that's why we're here now. Like he's taken her off me, and you know I don't even know what's going to happen here. I don't want to have to do this shit, but I want to see my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, all right then. So Jolly, when it comes to communication, how are you communicating with Brent about Alira? How does that look?
We don't communicate a lot. Like we don't talk a lot. Sometimes I try to use Facebook because I don't always have credit. Because I'm not working right now. I don't have credit a lot of the time, and so I can't text and all of that, which he whinges about. But like Facebook, it's the same thing. I don't know why he causes like a big ruckus about that. He's always like, oh, you should be calling me and texting me, but you know, I don't want to. And you know, my partner, you know, she knows how it makes me feel and how stressed out he makes me and stuff, and so she doesn't want me to call him either, and I don't want to, and I think it makes it worse.
Okay, but you can use your partner's like computer or whatever to communicate with via Facebook.
Yeah, like I've got the Wi-Fi, it's just I don't have like credit, and my partner's not there all the time, so you know, I can't all the time. But you know, that's what it's like. Like I'm not working right now, and it's not like I don't want to work or anything.
Yeah. All right. What about some background questions, some family background questions, if I could? So what's your family circumstances at the moment? You mentioned your partner, you've got a partner. What's the relationship status there?
So I think, you know, this is probably like a bit of an issue with Brent because I don't know, he reckons he doesn't reckon it's good for Lyra. And since I've been with Peter, so her name's Peter, and yeah, like I guess it's like a gay relationship or whatever, if that's what you call it. And she's so good. She's heaps good with Alira. You know, I didn't even introduce him for ages. So we've been together for probably like a year and a half. And she's really good. Like she's, you know, got a good job and stuff like that. It's just that I don't think, you know, we just haven't been together that long. So it's, you know, it's still early days. But, you know, Brent talks a lot of shit about her and about this whole thing that, you know, it's not good for Alira. I don't know why. But
did you have you had lots of partners that you introduced Alira to, or has that been happening since you broke up?
Look, you know, I'm a good mum. I don't do that shit. You know,
I didn't say you weren't a good mom.
Yeah, well, you know, I know that Brent is probably saying that I'm not and stuff like that. And people, you know, just because I'm a black fella, like, you know, this is bullshit. I like these questions, but whatever. Anyway, no, I haven't. I have had a few partners since me and Brent left because I was trying to, you know, get it out of my system. Like it's normal stuff. Everybody does that. I didn't introduce my daughter to none of them. He reckons that I have, but I haven't. And they never come around when Alira was there because I'm a good mum and I know like what to do. And that happened to me a lot, you know. I'd seen that stuff a lot before in, you know, in some of my family and that, and so I don't do it. But Brent keeps telling people that I do, and he probably told you that I do. That's probably why you asked the question.
Well, I can't say, Jolly, what Brent said
Yeah.
to me, but what's his family situation now, his partner situation?
I think he's single or whatever. Thing is, like when I still had Alira with me, he, you know, was sleeping around as much as the other person, posting it all up on Facebook. So, you know, same.
Yeah, and you know, as we have said in our intake process, Jolly, what we're trying to achieve here through the mediation is just the best outcomes for Alira, your child, you know, for both you and your ex-partners. So that's definitely what we've got at the center of what we're doing. But in terms of the parenting arrangements, then what arrangements have you got in place now between you and Brent for Alira?
Well, he's been keeping her from me. I haven't seen her in months now because, you know, I lost my fucking job. I work in hospitality, right? Yeah, it's not the best job in the world. I'm not like an accountant or whatever the hell Brent is, like with all the money he's got coming in. Yeah, I'm not. But it's COVID, and it's, you know, during these bloody lockdowns and stuff like that, I got let go from my job, and I can't get a bloody job, and I can't get a bloody lease. And so in the last few months since I've not been working, Brent just won't let me see her. He reckons that, you know, that like I'm a bad influence or it's not safe, but I'm staying with one of my mates who is Alira's auntie and has known Alira since she was born. And you know what I mean? Like, it's a safe place. It's just that it's temporary. But he reckons he's like so much better because he's got his big fucking house and his fancy job and all that sort of stuff. Like, if I could be working, I'd be working, but nobody's going to give me a lease when I don't have a job and I'm on bloody Centrelink.
So what you're saying right now is that, like, you don't really have any arrangements in place, but he's just got her all the time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So he called the cops on me and kept doing welfare checks, and the cops kept coming to my friend's house, and my friend was getting shitty with me, like it was my fault, you know, and I told him, you know, he's got to stop doing it. And then one day, like, he took Alira for his time and he never gave her back. I called the cops on him because, you know, fuck him. Like, he's done it to me a bunch of times. And the fact is that, like, he's basically like stealing my daughter from me. And this is exactly what I knew what would fucking happen. And now I've got to do this whole goddamn process. And I don't want to go to the courts because you know, people are always trying to take our kids. I can't deal with this. It's like, he knows what it's like.
Right. So, Dolly, do you really think that's good for Alira to be in that kind of unsettled environment?
Like I said, I'm staying with one of my best friends. I've known her for 25 years. She's known Alira since she was born. It is a safe place to stay. I am sleeping in the spare room, but people like Brent keep saying, oh, I'm homeless, I'm couch surfing. I'm not. Yeah, I'm a guest at her place, but she loves me and loves Alira, and it is safe. I can't live with my partner yet because I don't think that would be healthy for Alira. But living with her auntie is no big deal. It's just Brent doesn't like me, he doesn't like her, and he treats us like crap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you say so, Jolly.
I do say so. And
yeah, I
know.
don't mean to offend you, Jolly. I really don't. I'm sorry if I came across that way. Yeah. Sorry about that. Now, just let's start thinking in terms of the mediation. What brings you to mediation? Why did you come to mediation?
I want to see my daughter. And you know, it's not okay that her father is keeping her from me. It's not healthy for her. We're during this bloody COVID shit and she's stressed out, and we're really close. We've always been really close. You know, when me and Brent were together, he was off bloody working all the time, and it was just me and Alira. And it's always been me and Alira, and now she can't see me. He won't let me talk to her on the phone, nothing. And the only way I could do any of this is to like go down this route. And I don't want to be here. All I want is to have things back the way they were. It used to be 70-30 and I had her most of the time because he worked so much. But you know what? Like, I'd be happy, I'd be all right if he went 50-50. It's just, I have a right to see my daughter has a right to see me, and my daughter is missing out on really important cultural times with me, you know, she's 10 years old. You don't know when a girl's gonna, you know, turn into a woman and all that sort of stuff. And it's important for her to be with her mum, especially like when we're blackfellas. Like, I've got stuff to teach her, and I've got experiences that she needs to be having, especially when she's so stressed. And her dad's denying her that.
Mm-hmm. And so that's why you started the process. You initiated the mediation process.
Yeah, I mean, this, like, to me, this is just like bullshit, you know, white fella stuff, like, you know, oh, you got to come here, you got to write a piece of paper and that, instead of just people talking. But he's been ignorant about everything. And if this is the way I got to do it, this is the way I got to do it. I need to see my daughter needs to see me, and I'm a good fucking parent. I've always been a good parent. And, you know, people had just been like, you know, going against me since day one.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for all those answers, Jolly. And yep, we'll see what happens next.
All right, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Brooke. I'm the First Nations Community Development Worker for the Central Coast of New South Wales for Interrelate. So as you saw before, I was playing Charlie, which is a composite character built off quite a few case studies that we have dealt with at Interrelate from some clients. So her name has obviously changed, the details are obviously changed, and as I said, it's a composite. What I wanted to do now is to unpack some of the things that came up during that mediation, which some of you might have noticed was not great, and how bias comes into play with that. It's really important to recognize bias and to learn about your own personal bias. We're really big proponents of the fact that this is not about being wrong. It's about learning who we are, learning about the way we've been cultured in this world, and how we can change some of those things to do better by our clients. So Jali is a 35-year-old woman. She's an Aboriginal woman. So first off the bat, it would have been great if Jali was offered the support of an Aboriginal worker. In my role, that's exactly what I do. Mediators will often ask a client if they would like an Aboriginal support worker to be in the room during the mediation. This often makes sure that there's less miscommunication and that cultural understanding and comfort can come into play. Jali was not offered that. Jali's culture was completely disregarded during this mediation. So the mediator did not ask about culture, did not ask about how the child Alira was receiving any of her cultural engagement, considering her father is non-Aboriginal. You probably saw quite a bit of racial bias going on and confirmation bias together with that. So confirmation bias, as Linda explained earlier, is about confirming your beliefs, being that Jali is an Aboriginal woman and that the mediator has some sort of, you know, maybe discriminatory beliefs that they've learnt from the TV, media, other people in their life. When Jali brought up drinking, the mediator, you saw her believe the partner rather than Jali about the fact that she didn't drink like that. You saw the questioning going on there. You probably also noticed some classism or class bias coming through. So this is a big thing in mediation. It's a big thing in our communities as Aboriginal people, because we are often, and we are some of the most oppressed peoples in this country. A lot of us deal with and struggle with poverty and, you know, coming from lower socioeconomic status areas. That means that sometimes we communicate differently. Personally, I grew up in Southwest Sydney and that's the way we communicate. You know, language differences, sometimes swearing or cursing, slang terminology. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to class, the mediation sector is filled with a lot of people that often don't have that lived experience of poverty and that lived experience of coming from a lower class. And so that can cause some bias and some friction and some misunderstanding. And this is sort of what we're trying to avoid. For Jali, if she had had an Aboriginal support person there, some of the discomfort, some of the friction could have been alleviated. Jali regularly brought up the removal of children. Now, this is a massive thing that comes up during mediation, especially when mediating with Aboriginal people. Jali was angry, could have been considered aggressive. However, she wasn't being aggressive, she was being emotional. So this whole process is making Jali feel very triggered, likely due to generational, intergenerational and transgenerational trauma, given that she's an Aboriginal woman and if she looked the way I do while playing her, she's likely a mixed race Aboriginal person who might have the stolen generation in her family in a historical and likely continuing way. The mediation process can be very triggering for us as Aboriginal people. That fear and that anxiety of child removal and that continued cycle of oppression can be something that really affects the positive and successful outcomes of mediation. So as an Aboriginal community development worker, that would be a reassurance that I would be able to be to provide to the client, and also to remind the practitioner. That's something we do outside. We do briefing and debriefing. You know, what are some of the things that are important to bring up? And intergenerational trauma is one of the big ones. If you have an Aboriginal client coming in very emotive, very emotional, sometimes angry, uncomfortable with a non-Aboriginal mediator, these are some of the reasons why that can be. Obviously, there's a whole host of other reasons why people can feel angry and emotional. It's a stressful time. But for Aboriginal people, it's a compounded effect of intersectionality. If you are an Aboriginal woman, you know, there's an intersection of oppression there. If you're a queer Aboriginal woman like Jali was, like I am personally, there can be even further intersections and experiences of oppression. All of this is to say that having somebody in the room with you with a lived experience that can understand where you're coming from, that can have a deep-seated empathy due to life experience, can allow for a more positive and successful mediation. So recognizing these issues, as we've done through this presentation, as we've done through our little game that made it a little bit fun and lighthearted, looking at what were your first thoughts and first impressions of Brent, and your first thoughts and first impressions of Charlie, and how those have been coloured by the way you were brought up, the place you grew up, the people you grew up around, the education you received, the class within which you live, your gender, a whole host of different things, and how we can unpack those in a way that positively benefits our clients, especially if those biases and those ways of being are negative. They don't benefit us, they don't benefit our community, and they certainly don't benefit our clients that are in need. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon and welcome to Family Bias, the mediation game show that gets you to unpack your unconscious bias. This is not live in any way. I'm your host, Linda McNeil, and I have to tell you there are no prizes to be won, so you might say nobody's a winner. But let me tell you how the game works. We pretended to survey 100 people and collect the top answers to all the questions, and we'll match that against your answers. Put your answers in the chat box if you feel like doing that, or else just keep it to yourself. Like, make sure to give yourself 1 point when you get the right answer, because nobody else is going to give you anything. Have you got it? Great. Let's get going. Family Bias.
Question 1. When the mediator asked if Jolly drank, what kind of bias was she showing?
Survey says.
Racial bias, confirmation bias, class bias. Question number 2. What could be the reason or reasons Jolly seemed emotionally elevated?
Survey says.
Intergenerational trauma, racial bias, cultural insensitivity of the mediator. Question number 3. When Brent said he didn't think it was a good idea for Alira to be around Jolly's new partner, what was he showing?
Survey says.
Homophobia, heterosexism, entrenched conflict. And finally, question number 4. What are the ways the mediator did not put the needs of the child first due to her unconscious bias?
Survey says.
Failing to offer cultural support. Cultural misunderstanding. No reassurance. Failing to explain the process. Bias towards the white parent. Bias towards the employed parent. Failing to bring up the rights of the child to access to both parents